Hello, welcome back. I hope you're doing very well. I've had a couple of comments on videos over the last week or so asking for a tutorial on the new touch effects that came with 3.2. So we're going to have a quick look at that now. I've created a little, a very short array, a little small arrangement to demonstrate this. It's just drums, a top line, a vocal chop, and some bass, which sounds like this. Excuse me, I've got a bad throat today. So it's quite sparse, but I've chosen those four sounds so that it'll be easy to hear what these effects are doing. The touch effects are weird to me. The more I think about them, the less sense they make in their kind of current form. To me, they are performance effects, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But first things first, this is just an Apple Pencil because I know people are going to ask me. It doesn't work on the screen. I'm just using it as a pointer. So these effects in sort of at the beginning of the chain, you can ignore those. Those are just sound design things. I'll just use them to shape the sound a little bit. Because these, to my mind, are performance effects, I have them in the last slot because it makes sense to me to have all of your sound design kind of effects and sort of plugins or whatever you want to call them at the beginning of your chain so that you've shaped your sound so that any performance modifiers that you're applying are being applied to the shaped sound. It doesn't make sense to me to put them in the first slot. So that's why I've got them at the end here. And the reason I say they don't make sense to me is because if we look at the UI for this thing. So this is on our first track, and I've got a high pass filter applied to our drums here. So on the right hand side of this, we've got the standard parameters that you would expect to find on a filter. And if we double tap on the thing to look at the different effects we've got here, there's pretty much nothing new. There's a couple of things that are new, like there's a granulator mode, there's a comb filter that weren't there before. But most of the things that you can select here were in the Force already in some way, shape or form. So it seems to me that this two-part UI is supposed to be a kind of a hands-on performance mode for using effects, which is where the left-hand side comes into play. So you see we've got this touch strip here, which we can move with our finger, and we have a little field here which says assign parameter. It's this box that allows you to choose which of the parameters is affected by the touch strip, right? One note on that actually, we have two controls here. We have the touch value and the wet amount, and then next to it is a little chain icon. When you tap that chain icon, it links the two together so that as you touch the touch strip, it is affecting your mapped parameter, but it's also opening the wet amount of the effect as well. Now we're working with a filter, so we don't want that because we want the filter to be fully wet as we're opening it so we can hear the progression of the filter. But some of the other effects, there's a granulator preset, there's a thing called shimmer as well. If you're selecting some of them, it is worth messing around with that link because some of them do sound better if you're opening the wet amount at the same time as the touch value as well. So my one tip is to play with that, see if it sounds better. Attack and release are just the same as attack and release on the XY effects. Attack controls how fast the effect is applied. Release controls how quickly the effect is removed when you take your finger off the thing. So where I say this doesn't make sense to me is that the actual effects that we're working with were in the Force already. So this performance, this hands-on tactile thing seems to be what Akai are wanting us to play with. So we've got like a nice performance thing. But as far as I can tell, there's no way of so what would make sense to me is to have all four of those touch strips that I've got mapped on the screen. So as I was performing, I could sort of mess around with all of them at the same time. But you can't. You have to go into one, then you have to come out and go back into the next one. I'll just record arms of that. and go into the next one, do it, and then go back. There's no sort of real easy way. Now, it could be that I'm being dumb and I've not figured out a way to stack all of these touch strips on the screen. And if that's the case, please let me know in the comments, and I will edit this video or pin that comment to show that it's just me being an idiot. But I can't see a way of making those touch strips on the screen at the same time, which for me removes the performative aspect of them, because otherwise they're just effects that were in the Force already. That's my opinion on it. It's a bit weird. Maybe in an update they'll let us have everything on the screen, or maybe I'm being thick and I've not figured out how to do it. But there's a way around it. So what we're going to do is create some knob macros which are mapped to this touch screen here. First thing we need to do is go into all of our effects and turn on touch enable, because otherwise they won't work. And as I've touched these, you'll see that some of them are up and some of them are down. So this is a high pass filter, so I've got the filter all the way down. This is a low pass filter, so it's all the way up. So those are basically their off positions, if that makes sense. Our phaser is all the way down, and our low pass filter is basically off because it's wound all the way down. So what we're going to do is map 4 macros to those effects, and we can see what they sound like. So to do that, we go to macros, we go to, excuse me, I apologize for my voice today, project 2, which gives us an empty set of knobs to play with. We tap our first one and we go down to track. Drums is our first one. Insert 4 is our touch effect, and then touch value relates to the touch strip. So we go to touch value. Now I want to be able to open this, wind it open, and then let go of it so it snaps back to its original position. So I'm going to go to momentary, which means we can do that and then let go and it will snap back, which is what we want. Same process for second one, track, our top line, insert 4, touch value, and momentary, and that means I can wind this back and it will snap again, which is exactly what we want. Same thing here, track, vocal chop, insert 4, touch value, momentary, we can wind it up and back, and track, bass, insert 4, touch value, and momentary. So basically we've got a situation now, I'm just going to save that. We've got a situation now where we can play all of these things, and as we're playing we can mess around with our touch effects, and basically what that will do is open the touch effect and then close it again when we let go. Let's just see that this should be visible. Yes, it is. So you can see what's happening here. So essentially what we've done is we've just mapped a knob macro to the touch strip, which in this method allows us to control all of them at the same time. Okay, so let's just let's solo these tracks so we can see what's going on. So this is our drum track. So as you can hear, that's our filter coming in and out. This is our top line, filter coming in and out. Vocal chop, this was a phaser. You can hear our phaser coming in and out. Get rid of it. And this was quite interesting. So this is the low pass LFO. So we've got, it's a beat sync filter, and I'm controlling the depth. So as we wind it up, we start to get like a wah-wah effect, which sounds pretty cool actually. I quite like that. So if we unsolo everything, it just allows us to do. We've got some nice sort of performance stuff we can do. Quite good for transitions, things like that. We can, if we combine it with mutes. Sounds like a bird. This is quite a nice transition. So there you go. So They're perfectly great. The touch effects, they work perfectly fine. When you map them to knob macros, they work in the way that I think Akai intended them to work. And in that sort of respect, they're pretty good and I like them. It's just weird to me that you can't, this touch thing seems redundant to me when you can't put them all on the screen at the same time. But if you go through the process of mapping them to knob macros like that, then it sort of, it works in a way that makes sense to me and I quite like them. And it is worth going through. Some of these aren't quite as usable as others, like there's a turntable stop which does the thing that a turntable does, which is not particularly useful. Washout and shimmer work quite nicely on sort of pads or delicate synth sounds. You can make big sort of almost ambient expansive sounds. The beat repeat works, but it doesn't sound anything like as good as the beat repeat which is in the XY effect. So if you want to use that, I recommend using the XY effects for that one instead. It's definitely worth a play. And like I said, with the modulation effects, anything which is adding modulation or harmonics or anything like that, it is worth playing with this link between the wet amount and the touch value, because sometimes you'll find that linking those together completely changes the way the effect sits in the mix, and it could be quite nice in the background because you can really gently wind something in because the wet amount is opening at the same time. Anyway, that's touch effects and what I think about them. I hope that was useful, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.